Is Planeswalkers Theoric 6 back with some more upgraded new player decks for Magic the Gathering Arena. Today we're going to be looking at the red-green kicker deck. For those of you who don't want to see the deck tech, you can go ahead and find the timestamps to the matches in the description below. So the red-green deck is essentially a nice ramp style deck. This is what you get base. It comes with a decent number of 3-ofs, to be honest, as well as a good selection of rares. Things like, Demanding Dragon, Verix Bladewing, those are all pretty good cards. However, it could be a little bit more streamlined and can use a few more kicker cards to kind of meld out the rest of the deck. So we're running a decent number of ramp. So we're running 4 Llanowar Elves, 4 Elfhame Druids. Technically, you can consider Draconic Disciple in there as well, and then 3 Grow from the Ashes. We really want, with this deck, to be ramping as fast and as hard as we can in order to get to our nice kicker payoffs over here in 4, 5, and 6 mana, as well as potentially using Draconic Disciple to get a little bit of extra value out of our mana dork kind of thing. This deck is a ramp version, which is essentially, it's not an aggro deck. It's not really necessarily a mid-range deck. It kind of serves like a weird dual purpose where it's kind of in the middle. I really like that they were able to differentiate so many of the decks and have them all be like different archetypes. And this shows new players how to ramp efficiently, how much ramp that you might want to see in a certain deck like this. Unfortunately, a lot of the good payoff cards are just rares, right? And mono green essentially just does this job better. So as long as you are really low in rank, this deck will do fine for you because you're unlikely to see mono green. Mono green is like a proven deck, so you're not necessarily going to come up against it. However, if you do, it's usually just going to outclass you. Being able to Lifecrafter's Bestiary on turn 2 with Llanowar Elves and then follow it up with big creature, Ghalta, right? It's very difficult to come back from. But that said, this deck is also fun, whereas the mono green deck is kind of boring. So we use these ramp cards to start getting our payoffs late in the game, and our payoffs include Banefires, Fight with Fires, and then of course our kickers up here. Banefire is very important in this deck because it is a card that control can't deal with. As long as X is 5 or more, which is almost always going to occur with this deck, we have so much mana. Your opponent can't counter it, so if you're able to get your opponent down to about 10 mana, you're almost always going to be able to kill them with this card, and it's very important. Similarly, Fight with Fire is a card that can just dome your opponent. We technically have 30 damage worth of Fight with Fire in this deck. Sometimes, though, you will need to use a decent amount of it to deal with creatures on the board, but it's not uncommon to be able to cast this card on turn 6. The main problem with this deck, though, is refueling. Since we are dedicating a lot of slots to ramp, if our hand is ramp, payoff, it's unlikely we're going to have a lot of gas left, and if our opponent is able to answer that payoff, then it's very unlikely that we're going to win. And because of this, we're going to want eventually to build more payoffs into the deck. Hungering Hydra is also kind of a payoff card. It's a lot better against non-control decks where you can make it relatively large and your opponent just can't answer it very well because of the fact that it will keep growing. It's one of the cards that you probably want to get rid of. I would suggest running 2 Banefires over a Banefire and a Hungering Hydra, but it is there. Draconic Disciple can be used as double duty, which is pretty good. If you are running out of gas and you have a bunch of ramp, you don't need to keep having this around as ramp. You can just go ahead and pay 7 and sack it to get a 5/5. The fact that it has flying is very important. You're able to fly over a lot of different things. Let's see. Yeah, and then, sure, so I'm just going to go over to our removal suite. We have Shivan Fire, right? Shivan Fire, sure. Lightning Strike, and of course Fight with Fire. We've already talked a little bit about Fight with Fire, but that was as a finisher. Fight with Fire is also just 3 mana, 5 damage. That cost to damage ratio goes a long way in this format. It kills a ton of 3-drops, a ton of 4-drops, and even a decent number of 5-drops. A lot of 5-drops will already have gotten a little bit of value, something like Demanding Dragon. However, you can still answer it, so you don't end up dying to their 5-drop creature. So trading 3 mana for a 5 mana card is usually pretty good. Lightning Strike, very similar to the black-red deck, is its removal and reach. If we do need to just get those last few points of burn on our opponent, we can. And otherwise, it does just do a fine job of dealing 3 damage to any target. Shivan Fire is a little different than something like Shock in that it can't hit face. That said, it scales very well. Excuse me. In the early game, you are able to get rid of something like a mana creature or a very aggressive card in an aggro deck. And mid to late game, you are going to be able to deal with those pesky middle ground creatures. So it's very nice to have. But I definitely only see us running a few removal spells, and the reason for that is some of our late game creatures act as removal as well. Going on to our kind of like actual creature suite, we have Untamed Kavu down in the 2-drop slot. Very important card to have in this style of deck because it is a curve filler essentially no matter where it is. Early game, if you need to, you can have a decent card in a Vigilant Trample Bear. Like, that's still decent. It doesn't get chump blocked by 1/1s very well because it still tramples over a single point of damage. It can do double duty against aggro where it can attack and block. And late game, it becomes a 5/5. 5 mana 5/5 Vigilance Trample is a fine rate to pay, especially since you could theoretically get this out on turn 3 or 4, depending on how fast your ramp plan was. And having a 3 or 4 turn 5/5 Vigilance Trample is really strong. A bit of a payoff card for our kicker shenanigans is Hallar, I don't know. I've actually not had this guy played in all of the test matchups I've gotten, so I don't have a ton to comment on with this card, which is very unfortunate because we are running 3 of them. It's a fine rate as is, 3 mana 3/3 trample. It's not bad. And then if you do kick things, which you typically will, unless you're like really struggling early on, you do get some just extra value, not only on making him larger, which is going to help push damage to your opponent, but also just dealing extra points of damage to your opponent. Notably, it only matters that you cast the spell, so you don't even have to have it resolve. So if you get Hallar against a control opponent, and you just start like kicking Grow from Ashes, Shivan Fires, maybe even targeting your own Hallar, if it'll survive it, you might be able to just drain down your opponent with Hallar. I guess you should say shoot them down, since he is holding an arrow. But yeah, it seems like it should be a good card. I don't really have any comments on whether or not it should be in the deck because I haven't gotten a chance to play with it in all of the games that I've done yet. It's really strange. I didn't talk about Grow from the Ashes yet. Grow from the Ashes, really strong card. You can usually kick this on like turn 3 or turn 4, and when you kick it, you do have that extra mana, so you can play down something like a Shivan Fire or Lightning Strike, just be able to help against your opponent's onslaught as you continue to ramp. It's kind of just a necessary card to make sure we have the necessary amount of mana going on into the late game. Speaking of the late game, you might be saying, well, these are like 4-drops. How is this the late game? You can kick them, and you almost always want to. But before we talk about those, I want to talk really quickly about Grand Warlord. She's not a kicker. She does give you some mana, which is cool, but essentially she's like a 4 mana 3/4 haste. I would definitely suggest cutting her for some of the other kicker cards. I definitely think you want to max Verix Bladewing to like 3. I think Territorial Allosaurus is like the strongest card in the deck at 4, so you probably want to get this up to 4 as soon as you can, because I think it is just the strongest card, since it acts as a decent creature as well as a nice removal spell that you can almost always play really quickly. Baloth Gorger, unfortunately, is kind of just a stand-in here as Territorial Allosaurus. It gets larger than the Allosaurus, but it doesn't do as much. If you're finding that a lot of your opponent's creatures are just like 5Xs or like 5/5s or whatever, and Territorial Allosaurus is just likely not going to do as much, then I think keeping Baloth Gorger in is fine because it does get larger. So, speaking of Allosaurus, it's just real strong. I don't think I once had a situation where I wasn't able to use this somewhat. And then, of course, Verix Bladewing is 8 power worth of flying for 7 mana, and getting 7 mana in this deck is not hard at all. Very strong. I definitely suggest getting probably 2 or 3. 2 definitely. 3 probably. You just don't want to have too many of these in your hand at a single time because they are legendary. So, moving on to 5, we have 1 Demanding Dragon. This card is so good that like it doesn't even matter that it doesn't have kicker. I would definitely drop a Grunn in order to run another Demanding Dragon. And I don't know, but I think you might want to run even more Demanding Dragons. That's the thing with ramp, is that you do need essentially to balance your ramp to your payoffs very, very well. I think currently, as is, the deck has a little bit too much ramp in using Draconic Disciple. However, because this is a budget deck, I can't assume that people would have the extra rares to get Demanding Dragon. My suggestion for this is essentially drop the 2 Draconic Disciples and put in Demanding Dragon, or if you're finding Hallar isn't actually good, you can drop that instead. Draconic Disciple does still play that double duty of a finisher and a ramp spell as well. So And then we talked a little bit about Grunn and that he's worse than Demanding Dragon. It doesn't have trample, and the reason and because it doesn't have trample, it's just not as strong. Getting 9 mana, honestly, is not that hard with this deck, so you can relatively easily make it a 10/10 that has double strike, and relatively frequently, you're going to be attacking alone anyway. But because it doesn't have trample, they can still just chump it really easily, so it just doesn't do enough. As I said, I suggest cutting it for Demanding Dragon, or, excuse me, another one of those 4-drops that do a good job. And then, of course, the land situation. We actually dropped one of the lands, dropping down to 23, and the reason for this is because of how much ramp we have. 24 lands, I found we flooded out a little bit too frequently, so we just cut down to 23. I don't suggest cutting lower than this because you want to make sure you are still able to cast these even if your early ramp creatures do get destroyed. It comes with a Rootbound Crag. That's awesome. Memorial to Unity is helpful if you need to get one of your late game cards if you're just kind of running out of steam. And then, of course, Mountains and Forests. Going over to the sideboard here. I thought there was a card above this. I guess not. The reason we took this card out is we're not an aggro deck, right? We don't want to be attacking in our early game, and Bloodstone Goblin wants you to be doing that. So that's the reason we took it out. We want to be ramping. We want essentially all of our early game to be ramp or removal, and our late game to just be incredible bombs. And this is not ramp or removal. Similarly, Ghitu Chronicler, it just doesn't have a lot of good stuff to get back. You could theoretically have a deck that's more focused on Fight with Fire, and in that specific case, if you're trying to make it more of a burn kicker deck that runs a lot of Bane Fires, a lot of Lightning Strikes, a lot of Fight with Fires, then this card is a lot better, because then you are able to keep rebuying those Fight with Fires, and you could theoretically just dome your opponent for 10, play this the next turn, you get a blocker to survive, you get Fight with Fire back, and then you dome your opponent for 10 the following turn. So if you do want to go that route, this is fine. Otherwise, the card's just not strong enough in this type of deck. I'll talk about the cards that I did cut before I talk about the bestiary. Thrashing Brontodon, it's good. You might, if you're finding that you're just losing to too many artifacts and enchantments, you might want to drop Draconic Disciple for this. Maybe Hallar, again, if he's not doing well for you. But it doesn't synergize with the deck, so that's why I ended up cutting it, especially since they only had one in the deck. Skizzik's, again, we're not an aggro deck, so like having a 5/3 trample haster is not really where we want to be at, especially if we have to pay 5 for it in order for it to stick around, and our opponent could just block it very easily and have it die anyway. So it's just there are too few scenarios in which the card is actually going to get a decent amount of value, other than maybe killing a creature. But again, against mono green, this is possibly just going to get blanked by something like a Ghalta. And Two-Headed Giant, I think this card is probably good. It's probably better than it actually sees play for, but it just doesn't synergize with the deck, and we already have 4 ofs that we would prefer to have, right? Bailiff Gorger is essentially going to be a better card at all points, because you're guaranteed to have the possibility of making a 7/7, where Two-Headed Giant requires you to get a little bit of random chance value in order to get some extra value. And then, of course, Life Crafter's Bestiary. As I said, we do run out of gas a little bit with this deck. And since we are running a decent number of mana creatures, it's very possible that in top deck mode, we can just start running into problems of we draw Llanowar Elf, we draw Elfhame Druid, we draw another Llanowar Elf, and we're just sitting there like, well, I'm going to lose this game. So Life Crafter's Bestiary actually can do like some serious work. And I sound like a broken record saying this, but Draconic Disciple is really the card that you'd probably end up cutting for this. That or maybe Hallar, again, if it doesn't do very well. You could theoretically start cutting some of the like spells. If you do want to focus more on the creatures, you can cut things like Shivan Fire, Lightning Strike, maybe the Bane Fires and stuff, but I do like the idea of holding those. If you find that you are going to go more of the just outpace them with creatures. And in that scenario, this card's just so good. Even if you don't ever get to pay a green to draw a card when you cast a creature spell, the fact that you're just able to scry and help fix your draws is very, very important in this type of deck. And unfortunately, the fact that the green decks run this card means that they're almost always just going to be drawing better than you. And that's kind of unfortunate, because I do think this deck is cool. I think the deck works for what it's trying to do, but it's outshined right now. I need to save that. Yeah, let's go ahead and play some games. The deck is fun. It is good. It's just, if you run up against specifically mono green, you might be in for a little bit of a bad time. Going up against Vanguard Warden with the Teferi. Going first is nice, but unfortunately we don't have a green source, so we do need to mulligan this. We have a green source, but now we don't have any cards. And because we don't have any cards, we really need to go down. And I think this is fine. That's fine. So we can turn 2 Kavu into turn 3 Hallar. But we are kind of screwed out of this game, honestly. Having to multi 5 again in a deck that is inherently loses gas is very bad, especially against a deck that is probably control. So yeah, it's going to be probably difficult. Hopefully we can just get there with the Untamed Kavu. It can't get hit by not Settle Darkage, by Seal Away, but it looks like it's blue-black, so probably going to cast this down. Although frankly they should wait. Interesting. That is not what I was expecting. Let's go ahead and play Hallar. And there's no reason to attack, we were just getting them life. Okay, this is not what I expected at all. I guess my opponent is on some sort of artifact thing. And that's one of the good things about playing these decks. You're not going to be coming up against quote-unquote good decks. You're not going to be coming up against tiered decks. That's good because you don't necessarily have to worry about annoying things. Didn't you top that the first time? I don't... unfortunately, we are just kind of running a bit lame here. I could fight with fire this, but I want to save it because I don't think that this is... I don't think this is worth using fight with fire on because we don't know what our opponent is doing. That said, we might as well get through for a single point of damage. They're going to block here. That's a weird block. So we got through for 2 damage. If our opponent blocked here, we would have been able to get through for additional 1. Or we would have gotten through for a less damage, because they would have gained 1 life and then only taken 2, so it would have been a net of -1. But, who knows. We'll see what our opponent is going to continue to do. They go ahead and scry, see if it's the top or the bottom. Put it in the bottom, okay. So we do know that their top of their deck is going to be relatively random for them. Don't know if it's going to be good or bad. Alright. Looks like we're just going to run it back. And yeah, I mean, this is kind of what I said with this deck. You can kind of just run into a problem here where you just draw lands. Like at this point, even though I don't have ramp, I'm at the point where I can cast at least for non-kick. Oh, okay. Now he's seeing. He should have done it this way. Looks like he's going to kill. That is unfortunate. I also... Yeah, that's fine, I guess. We would be able to play unkicked a lot of our cards at this point, so kind of unfortunate that we had to mulligan all the way down to 5. And our opponent's going to start being able to draw cards, put it at the bottom. Ooh, and it got a lot of scry with that. Real nice, nice combination there. Yep, opponent looking for something specific, looks like. Probably their, like their single good card, so I expect next turn they're going to play something very strong. Oh, hello. That is interesting as heck. So let's see, this would be 7. This costs 9, so that's not very good. Our opponent would be able to scry the heck out of this game. I don't really have a way to deal with that. That is a reason to keep Brontodon in the main deck, just because it's a fine card, and it does get rid of random enchantments and artifacts, but... Oh, okay. That's what this is. Let's see, so they're going to get 2 next turn, and then 2 the following turn. You control. Okay, so we have 2 turns to win. Oh, and he dies. And they gain more life, so fight with fire is going to be harder. That is not great. I guess we just have to... We'd like have to Grunn for no value. And then... No, no, we're dead. Heck, even if I had Brontodon at 2, still probably would end up losing to this. I did not see this coming. And they have the Tezzeret to get rid of Grunn.
I am here. You have been.
Rip. Rip-er-roni. Alright. That wasn't a great showing, mostly because we had to mulligan all the way down to 5. It's possible that we should have kept the second hand, but then again, we had like 5 lands in that hand, so. Going against CS Strobridge, cool name. Playing his Vivian Reed avatar. We're going second. Usually you do want to go first. I mean, I guess you want to go first in like every matchup, so. This hand is great. I got that sweet turn 1 Llanowar Elf into probably Hallar, into starting to kick things. Yeah, seems valuable. Okay. I don't know what that was about. It's possible my opponent just got sick of playing against mono green and they thought we were playing mono green. Possibly. Or maybe they had to leave. I don't know. That was weird. I mean, take him as you get him, you know. This is hilarious. Welcome back, CS Strobridge. You think we're gonna get the to concede again? This is fine. It's not as rampy, but we do have a Shivan Fire into like Hallar, so I think it's fine. Let's see if see what my opponent does here. I don't even know if they like paid attention, if they know it's me. Alright, we have some late game stuff. We just need to see if we can get there. So we can't kill that, unfortunately. Not with Shivan Fire. But we can kill it with Fight with Fire, and I think it might be correct to do so. Because they could play something for 4 next turn. Do I want them to play something for 4 next turn? This costs 5. I think I'd rather play Hallar. Yeah, I think I'd rather save this for a 4-drop. As long as it's not something like dumb that I can't deal with. Llanowar Elf, don't care. So yeah, I mean, it looks like we're playing against mono green. Maybe they just didn't like the mirror, and they realized after we played the mountain that we're not the mirror. Who knows? But typically this deck is going to be harder for us to beat. But they didn't do anything. So that's nice. I can actually Druid here, so next turn I can do some fun stuff. 1, 2, I'd have 6 mana next turn. If I top decked another land, I'd have even more mana. But honestly, I think I just I play this, and I could Shivan Fire this now, but I think I'm going to not. I am going to attack with Hallar. I assume my opponent's just gonna take it. But next turn I can do some fun things. Depending on what my opponent does. Aggressive Mammoth. All right. Well, that's a big boy. All right. So I have 2 for 6. That costs 7. This costs 8. This costs 7. This costs 9. I could. It's 4 damage. I could attack my opponent. So the problem is this deck plays the Rabid Bite, which it's not a fight, it just deals damage. So I could attack and hope my opponent blocks, and if they do block, I can Shivan Fire, kick it, and kill and essentially trade this off. The problem is my opponent probably won't block, but this plays better around Rabid Bite since our opponent could just get rid of it anyway. Yeah. That's unfortunate. And there's not really a good reason for me to play any of the other things. Aggressive Mammoth is very good here. Yeah, it looks like, yep. Rabid Bite. Yep. Yep, not anything I could have done about that, unfortunately. I could Shivan Fire now. And hit one of these. I don't think it's worth it. Yep. Mono green can usually just beat us. I pretty much have to take damage here. Should I actually Shivan Fire this? I guess so. Technically, that means I should have Shivan Fired earlier. Actually, you know what? Wait. If I draw land, I'll be on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is 4... No, it's 5 total. Darn. Yeah, so I will do it now. Got another Druid, so that's nice. We could get back. We can get back into this game as long as our opponent just doesn't kill us on this turn. Opponent has 4 cards. This very good card, but we do have enough to fight with fire, right? 2, 4, 6, 8. Nope, this costs 9. Crap. So we need to draw land, and then we can kill all of these. That's fine, right? That means that we're not going to die this turn. If we draw a land, then we can get back into this. That is not a land. Okay. I guess we kind of have to Verix Bladewing. I think I can do this. And then it's 7, yeah. So Verix technically saves us. 2, 4, 6, 8. This costs 9. Yeah. Darn. I usually got flooded. I usually get flooded with 23 lands. And of course now, I am not. So it's possible that you should stick with 24? But yeah, it's... I assume my opponent's going to have another kill or that. Well, that by itself doesn't do it. Because we can still triple block. Okay, that still doesn't do it. Still doesn't do it. That was the correct attack there. Our opponent's going to get through for some damage, but we pretty much have to triple block here. And once again, like we have to kill this. Yeah. Theoretically, we could have saved this, but then like we wouldn't have gotten rid of this card, and Fight with Fire would have no longer saved us. That's frustrating. 2, 4, 6, 8. So I can play this and kill that, and I'd have 7, 2, 4, 6. Both of them would be tapped. That is not great. I'd be able to kill this, and then I'd only have 1 blocker up. 2, 4, 6, 8. I might just need to Druid Fight with Fire. Just to kill that, just to stay alive, and then maybe Allosaurus helps us get it back in the game. Yeah, I guess that makes the most sense. And the reason I had to do that is because they had the possibility of getting this back in their hand. So giving this trample would have been too much, right? So I can still chump and duck. Oh, that's not great. That's hexproof. I mean, Baleth Gorger can get bigger than it, but putting it on this would make it difficult. Sure. So Baleth Gorger can get bigger than this, which is fine. Hey, look, it's Banefire. Oh, it doesn't have kicker, so we can't actually do that for a ton. We could do it for 6. It's not enough. So we are just going to... We can't even kick Baleth Gorger, because we'd have 2 blockers, and we would take exactly 2 damage. If we kick this... 2, 4, 6, 8. We kill 1, have 2 blockers... Take 1 damage? Yeah, it looks like I have to do this. And then we kill the Druid of the Cowl. And then pass turn. Oh, no, because this is trample, right? Unfortunately, there was nothing we could have done there. Vine Mare, really difficult to deal with. Yeah, I mean, as I said during the DeckTech, mono green just kind of stomps on this deck, especially when they do stuff like that. We're just going to go ahead and concede. Yeah, that's unfortunate. The deck is good. I won a decent number of my games in testing for it. It's possible that you should be running 24. I was flooding at 24. Maybe that was just some variance because I wasn't able to play like a ton of games. I played like 5 or 6. But I was flooding at 24. But I would suggest putting back to 24, seeing if that helps a little bit. But let's have some fun. Buy a pack. What of the... I'll just buy Corset. Who cares? I assume we're going to get account wiped soonish, so does not matter too much. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed a deck that is kind of just worse than another deck. It's fun. I really like playing with Territorial Allosaurus, but mono green is just real strong. I can't wait till mono green gets pushed out by some of the cards from Ravnica. Anyway, I'd like to thank Easymode, Chris, DizzyFam, Daniel, Flowerchild, and Chow83 for supporting the channel. If you'd like to join them, you can find a link in the description below or click on the annotation that comes up soon. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, go and tap that like button, add a subscription to your mana pool, and cast a comment in the comment section down below. And until next time, all will be one.